Several key senior staff left in recent years, and fans have been asking about the actual structure, and it's probably something for all five of you, really. Where does the structure lie in terms of who does what? Jeff, can we start with you?
Yeah, I have to say, as the club is at a different stage now. I think if you look at a company or a club or whatever, I think the early stage is different from the later stage, and so it's very natural, and the people will come and go, and because of course some people, they may need a new club or a new company to work for, and also from the club's view, we need more fresh people to come in, because if you cannot always rely on older group people and to do all the jobs, because the club is bigger and bigger now. So it's very normal. It's a kind of involvement. From my personal view, I think we have a better team now than before. So bigger team, stronger background. So I don't have any concerns about the people who have left. Of course, I wish them have a good future and for their career, but I'm very happy about the people we have now in the club. I think they are stronger.
Yeah, we heard from Matt and Scott, obviously, but Russell, what's your sort of role? How would you sum it up?
Well, as Matt pointed out, I suppose mine and Vinny's role really is to drive that commercial revenue, to be that big club. So my role is predominantly around growth. It's around fan base, developing our story and our fan base all around the world, and then looking to commercialise that story through partnerships, through membership, through media, and also through retail and licensing. So very much about growth. That
point you made about fan relationships, that's interesting, because one of the questions we had from Joe Element about COVID, has that affected, do you think, the club's relationship with the supporters?
I think it's really tricky, isn't it? Because it's created this distance that we've never really ever experienced before in football history. What we've tried to do is close it by all sorts of different digital platforms. So we introduced radio 24/7. We introduced Matchday Live. I could keep going. We've introduced a sort of an AI portal for anybody that's, AR portal, for anybody that's seen that. So I do think it's become a bit more challenging, but we've done everything possibly we can to just try and keep that relationship with fans, and obviously we'll continue to do that. But on the other side, look, I think everyone around this table would agree that we can't wait to see fans back, against Manchester United. That's what football's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but Johnny, I think maybe one of the hints behind the question is about why Jeff didn't come out to speak too much, right? I think I understand that. But one thing I want to say by this chance is just because everything I will speak to the public will be read and be watched by all the people around the world. So sometimes I have to think about what I will say, what I can say. For example, the players, the coach, the staff here, my friends, my competitors, maybe other clubs, they will all listen to me and to hear what I will be saying. So I'm very restricted to what I can say. For example, after a loss, of course, I'm not happy. But can I say the same thing? Oh, whatever. I don't like the play from a player. Whatever. I cannot say that, because I have to. It's like one family for the club. I have to look after the internal stuff first. And sometimes I'm afraid what I can say will give negative impact to our staff. So sometimes you have to be careful about this. So I understand. Maybe in the past the fans were okay, and someone came out to say some good things to please them, but they don't know. Sometimes when you say something, maybe good to you to hear, but better to others to hear. So I have to find the balance. So eventually, when you search for all the words I can say, it's very limited. So that's the reason I don't want to come out to say too much, and also especially at the moment when emotion is across the whole club, and everything I can say is wrong. So that's the reason why personally I cannot come to say. And also for all the people, the leadership group, they're the same, because normally, in principle, and the leadership group, what they can say should be approved by the club, because what they say is representing the image or the profile
Yeah.
of the club. They are representing the team. So sometimes you come out to say something, actually people and fans will think you are, the whole club is behind you, right? So they will not try to distinguish you. It's what Russell said, what Vinny said, that you are all from Wolves. So that's the reason why we have to be careful, and we have to have a proper process to say what we have to say. And I do hope the fans can understand that. And actually, from the personality, I'm quite keen to talk with the fans. And so I always receive and reply the emails to them. But for the public speaking, public social media, we have to be careful, because it's not, sometimes you just feel pleased about some words, but actually in long term the words will have better impact to ourselves. Yeah.
And I think that shows where we are in our evolution. I think we're a pretty calm organisation. I don't think we want to rush to speak publicly in moments of panic or times of hardship or whatever. But I think the way Jeff and us guys work is that we don't speak too often, but we do, and we feel that it's appropriate and it's necessary. And just on the structure side, I think many people see that a couple of key departures took place last year and they've never been replaced. And there's the myth that Jeff is sweeping the dressing room and all that sort of stuff.
No.
I'd actually say the opposite's true. I'd say we've beefed out the leadership team now, and instead of being 3 guys, it's now there's now 5 of us doing that work. So I think the contrary of what the common misconception is actually quite the opposite.
Reading through all the 633 questions, there's a lot of satisfaction with the media channels and the work that is being put out in the content. And also there is a general sense of gratitude for what Fosun have done in terms of a wider sense for the club. Vinny, you touched on that, sort of the wider beefing out of the leadership team. Where does your role fit into that?
So I oversee the kind of the trading arms of the club, if you like, the retail operation, ticketing, hospitality, food and beverage, all that sort of stuff. Work really closely with Russell and Russell's teams in marketing and media to basically run the club from a commercial operations perspective and make sure that we're optimising revenues whilst delivering a great product to our fans.
You mentioned the word ticketing,
I
so
did.
if you're going to cross it, I'll nod it in. Dave Bodison, Tom Willett and many, many more have said, why are you charging £45 a ticket for a dead rubber against Manchester United after fans haven't been able to attend for so long?
Yeah, I think, firstly, that I'd question the dead rubber element to that question. I think, that there's been some talk this week about it's going to be a Man United reserve team and it is a dead rubber. For me, personally, this is a huge moment for the club. That fans haven't been able to come in our stadium and watch a game of football for over a year. This is not a dead rubber. This is a momentous occasion that we're really excited to be staging and to be welcoming fans back into the stadium. On the pricing side, I get that pricing increases are never celebrated and are never greeted with, great warmth. But the reality is, we touched on it earlier in some of the FFP conversations, and as a club, we've got certain ambitions, and we have to operate commercially in a way that's befitting of a club that's the size and the success that we want to reach. I think my job and Russell sort of is the same. Is I've got to try and find the right value balance between the fans and the economic success of the club. And I think, if I'm being completely honest, and this is probably an unpopular view, in recent years we've probably been undervaluing our products and services. I think tickets have been on the cheap side. We underwent a benchmarking exercise recently which showed that we were sort of 17th, 18th in the Premier League in terms of what we charge for people to come to the games, and actually we've had 3 really successful years back in the Premiership, and we've had a good Europa League run. So we've reached the knockout phase of that. So we wanted to really realign our prices, and I know that that's difficult for people to maybe accept initially. But what we really want to do is be fair, and we don't think that the pricing structure that's in place for the Man United game is unfair. I think our most expensive ticket is 45, as the question points out. We benchmarked that, and there's actually 8 clubs that are charging more than that for their top price ticket. So we are somewhere in the middle of that group in terms of the Premier League and what they're charging, and that is realistically where at this point in time we need to be.
But on the other side of that, the community that you're in has suffered greatly from the pandemic, and you'd be hard pushed, I think, to make a case for £45 for a lot of sort of paying supporters. How can you answer that?
I understand it's been a really difficult time for not just the community here, but all over the country, and you know I'm empathetic towards that. Of course I am. I think, you know, I'd counter by saying the club have done tremendous work over the last 12 months in the community. Feed Our Pack, you know, we've called our elderly and vulnerable fans over the last 12 months, give them care calls to make sure they're okay. Russell can probably list another 5 or 6 things that we've done that have really impacted and helped the community that we're in. The cold reality is that you'll have seen our recent results for 1920. We posted a £40 million loss, and this year's probably not going to be much prettier than that. So we're always trying to find that balance of, you know, being fair, making sure that the fans are getting good value for what they give us and for being part of that community. But equally, we've got to look after the football club, and we've got to try and get parity with the likes of clubs that we're trying to compete with.
Ross, we touched on the dislocation that fans might be feeling at the moment, and Sebastian Wallum has said, you know, football's a habit, and you know people might be out of that habit. Will £45 a ticket maybe not encourage them to return? Do you understand that you could have created a rift with the local population?
Yeah, no, I think we do, and as Vinny said, it's something that we spent a lot of time working through, considering, making sure that you know we believed it was good value in terms of the rest of the Premier League benchmarking. I think in terms of what will happen moving forward, obviously take-up of tickets so far has been really, really strong. We believe that, you know, moving forward there's a real appetite to get back inside the stadium and to see the team playing again. You know, we all missed that full house at Molineux. I think anecdotally we know other sporting events around the country have sold out in super quick time. So you know, we do believe internally there's a real appetite for fans to get back inside the stadium.
Is that more of a commercial decision than a moral decision, perhaps?
It's both. Ultimately, it's both. And you know, we always factor in, you know, what the societal consequences of our decisions are going to make. But we've got to make sure that I mentioned the balance of value. If we're giving the club all of the value from, let's say, ticket sales, and the fans are getting no value, they're overpaying, and you know they're getting nothing out of that, and the club are making tons of money off the back of that. That's an imbalance, yeah, and that's unfair. And if we were doing that, if the club was getting all the value and the fans were getting none, that would be a failing. Likewise, if the balance was tipped the other way, and the fans were getting probably overvalued for what they were getting, and the club were being undervalued in that dynamic, again, that's a failing. So what we're always trying to do is find that fair and reasonable sweet spot that gives us, A, what we need to continue to compete as fans expect us to, whilst B, giving the fans what they perceive to be value.
Yeah, but I want to say that there is a big misconception from the fans is that they think the major revenue source come from the broadcasting, whatever, and so the ticketing revenue is not important, whatever. It's wrong. I can say when we say top 6 of big clubs, we want to catch up with the biggest gap. It's not the broadcasting revenue, it's the ticketing revenue.
But that's the size of the stadium, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but also about the pricing. So if you look at the price for Chelsea, for Spurs, for Man United, you can see the huge gap. You know, so.
But they're 40,000 more fans.
But that gives us a further disadvantage because you know if you look at Newcastle, for example, 52,000. You know, we could be at the same price as them, but they're still going to be beating us in that competitive element. And I think Jeff makes a great point. Across Europe, in the big 5 leagues, match day revenue is around 16% of a club's revenue, and people do sort of say it's nothing to the clubs. Why do they even bother charging us ticket? It means nothing. It couldn't be further from the truth, because in the Premier League, in that bracket that we're in, the broadcasting revenue and the Premier League distribution is largely the same for a lot of clubs. Where you can really make a difference is in that, you know, that commercial area that you can control, such as sponsorship, retail ticketing, etc., etc. So it is important, and you know, it's important that we find the right value for our products.
Yeah. Right.
I was just going to say, look, don't underestimate the occasion. You know, having fans back since the 7th of March 2020, you know, it's going to be a great occasion for the fans, but it's going to be probably an even great occasion for the players. You know, I can't tell you how much they've missed it. Connor is constantly on me saying, when are we going to get fans back? We miss the fans back. We miss the fans so much. We need fans back in the stadium.
I think a certain amount, I agree to some extent, and I think the players will have a huge lift from it. I think there's a significant amount of the fan base who don't see this as important, because it'll be mainly empty. and the social distancing is in place, and they're looking to when Molineux can be full again, and that's perhaps why another reason why the ticket price is such an issue.
But it's such a vital step on that journey. This is a, we're never going to go from zero to a full stadium, and this is a, we were planning as far back as last July to get people back in, and then we were going to, if you remember the tiering in December, we were going to get the last 7 games in, and then it's ever evolved and changed, and it's as luck would have it, it's just one game at the end of the season now, which does create a bit of a strange, weird sort of dynamic for you're going to have fans in for one game, but I think it was important that we recognised that it is a big occasion, and it's a Premier League fixture against one of the most successful clubs in world football.
And it's frustrating because it is one game. We've got red zones, amber zones that we're not allowed to move. So it's killed a lot of seats. We'd love to get some more fans in, but because it's one game, we can't. We're just limited to what we can do.
So, Vinny, is this going to sort of be the forerunner to a season ticket price rise? That's what a lot of fans who've emailed in theory. I'm sorry if this feels like
no, not at all. Look, I need to be totally honest, and we have to take ownership from where we are. I came into the business 2 years ago, and one of the key things that in the analysis of where we were as a commercial operation was that we're probably on the cheap side, and we do need to realign if we want to compete at the levels that we want to compete at and the fans expect of us. We're commercially miles away from, I don't want to use the big 6 because it's not on vogue at the moment to say those things, but we're miles away from them, and whilst we never want to be pricing our ticketing so that it's unaffordable and it's pricing people out, it's pricing the working man out. I'm a working class lad myself. We're desperate not to do that, and we're committed not to doing that, but what we do want to do is bring a balance and fairness into where we are and get it to parity in terms of our peers. We're not looking to overprice fixtures. We're not looking to, make season tickets unaffordable. But we do need to reset and realign where we are, because historically we've in my opinion, and in when we look at benchmarking against the Leicester Cities and the Newcastles of this world, who we see as our competitors commercially, we're behind them.
I understand that. I understand that you have to try and sort of bridge that gap. But there will always be fans priced out. As soon as that £45 ticket is announced, there will be a percentage that you must accept are priced out now.
Well, affordability is hugely subjective, isn't it? We've discussed this as well. What's affordable to one person is not affordable to another. But I think that generally we have to look at the data as well. It is an emotional topic, but we have to see, if we're struggling to sell out the venue at the prices that we're setting, then obviously that's a clear message that we're overpriced. But actually, reaction to this United game, and you quote 45, I must remind you that's the top price.
Yeah.
There are other prices, and our junior prices are moving into next year, and we'll be really competitive in terms of benchmarking and where we are. But it is what it is for that one game, and we have to get there.
You touched on the junior prices. Is that something you're conscious of, that you can't let them spiral, if that's the right word?
Well, they're our future, aren't they? Right. So I think we understand that, and I think we're really competitively priced on junior prices. They're the lifeblood of our future. They're going to be bringing their kids in 20 years' time. So we definitely don't want to overprice juniors out of the stadium for sure.
A few fans have asked Stephen Freeman, William Bowen, when all the information is going to come out about season tickets. When is that?
Well, we're in a world where things are changing all the time. Yeah, I'd love to say this is when season tickets are going to be going on sale. The reality is, and Matt's close to these conversations as well, we don't have full information from the Premier League yet as to what that first game in August is going to look like. We have 22,000 season ticket holders. We don't know if we're going to be bringing more or less than that in August. So until we have that sort of more concrete information from the government, both nationally and locally, as well as the Premier League, we can't really go out on sale, because what we don't want to do is what a lot of clubs did last year, is go on sale with the season tickets, and it causes other headaches when you can't fulfil your obligations. So we'll see as soon as we can announce something. We obviously will, but for the time being, we're waiting on other people really to give us the guidance.
That's it. We're in the hands of government, so all eyes are on the 21st of June to see if that is going to be the actual date where everything is relaxed, and if it's not, then if social distancing does remain in place, and that's obviously going to affect the capacity, unfortunately.
I mean, this is a question sort of for several of you in a way. We've had a whole lot of questions in with everyone with their own individual cases of where their loyalty points haven't stacked up to the tickets they feel they deserve. Others who find it hard to get into away games when that looks a closed shop for the people who go all the time. Some saying there should be a ballot system where you can get fans who just really don't ever have a chance to come in, where they can enter the ground. There seems to be, sort of to sum it up, a group of fans struggling with the current setup. Some feeling excluded, some feeling they maybe deserve more. I mean, Russ, do you understand the feelings of fans, and is there anything that club can really do? Will any ticket policy just always be weighted against some section?
Look, it's difficult, isn't it? And we know it's difficult. I think we all, again, talk about this quite a lot. I think from our perspective, and again, I know I spent quite a lot of time talking to our membership manager about this, because membership is very much part of our season ticket waiting list. And we're really conscious, again, of that young community that Vinny talked about. I mean, I, like all of us, walk down the park, and 3 years ago they're all wearing Barcelona and Real Madrid shirts. You know what, now they're all wearing Wolves. That's amazing for me as sort of the marketing guy. But then I'm conscious of, well, how now do we bring those people into the stadium when we don't have that seat availability? So it's an ongoing issue for us. I do believe that we do need to make sort of buckets of tickets available to a wider audience, to a ballot. I mean, we have now 160 supporter clubs around the world, and Alan, who manages those clubs, as you can probably imagine, is constantly bombarded with the fact that 100 Belgian Wolves fans want to come over. We just can't manage those guys. The same that a Danish supporter club want to come over. Our New York Wolves want to come over. I mean, what a great position to be in. And right now we have to try and manage that as carefully as we can.
And it is difficult because ultimately the fan base we've got locally doesn't go into 31,000, and the same issue happened on a smaller level with the United game, because we've got 22,000 people. That doesn't go into 4,000. Then there's never going to be a way that you can do that everybody goes, that's brilliant. You have to try and find the fairest, the most reasonable way, and that's what we think that we've done. But just on that, and going back to your question a little bit, we're building fan consultation groups now. So Russell pioneered the Matchday Experience group that we have, and I'm part of, and as is Russell. We want to roll that out into other areas. So we want consultation groups now on ticketing, on retail, and on those other things, so that we can get fan feedback on what they believe is the fairest way. Because I can tell you, it's really difficult. We throw around countless scenarios of how to do everything, and we really do give things serious thought. We don't do things on a whim. And we're always trying to find the fairest way, and maybe if people are involved and engaged on that process, they can maybe see some of the challenges that we face in doing this stuff.
Russ, a lot of members have asked, will they be compensated properly for what happened last season, for joining and then obviously not getting any benefits? Most of the members joined just to be eligible for tickets, and that went out of the windows. What can you sort of update on that?
I think there's a couple of parts to that. First and foremost, there's a number of benefits from being a member. Clearly, ticket priority is one, but there's a number of other benefits. I think last year when we saw that clearly we weren't going to be able to offer that ticket priority that we normally do, we gave everybody that had bought a membership a voucher for the store. This year, those loyal people that decided to buy the membership this year will have a discounted price going into their renewal. So look, we want to look after those people that were that loyally renewed their membership.
Is this a chance for fans, Jeff, to get on board? Will fans have a big say in this, or can they have any say in maybe ways in which you can change the ticketing approach, or change the way they can have access to the club in general?
5 years ago, I remember the first thing to me is the fans parliament. So I attended maybe more than 10 times to the fans parliament, but I did feel it's not working so good, because even you have maybe 100 people there, they cannot represent the whole group of fans. So, and also sometimes I feel the questions or the advice from them are quite too simple to me. Just for example, I do want more practical or more smart things for me to change it. So what I want to say is just for the running of the club, and because we are doing a full-time job, and general, in principle, we have more knowledge than normal fans, just because we have spent 24 hours here, right, for every day. But I want to say, if any fan could give me some ideas I didn't think about, or it's really, really good for me to put into practice, so I will welcome that. But now I'm still thinking about some good idea because I don't think the fans parliament work very well. But I'm trying to talk with the colleagues to find a better way, and maybe so. This is one of the initiative from me. Just I want to try. Okay, maybe get it directly from the fans, and not only a small group of people. Maybe any fan can ask any question to me. Even sometimes it's not so sensible, but I want to hear at the least. Then it's a kind of renovation I want to have. Maybe in future more things like this will happen, and not only about the broadcast, maybe some calls, some emails, whatever, and try to touch the fans directly, then listen to them. But for the decision making from the club, it's always about the board, about the owner, because the owner is the owner for a reason, right? So so they have the right to make the right decision for the club. If they are wrong owners, they are bad owners, sooner or later they will be gone. So sometimes at the least trust the owner or trust the board more, then sometimes they will deliver a good job to you. Right? Yeah.
This one's for everyone then, given all we've said. Apart from letting fans back into ground, are there any plans to re-engage supporters in the whole? A lot of supporters have felt dislocated. We've said that already. They've also felt sort of marginalised, maybe from what happened with the Manchester United ticket situation. Is there a plan to re-engage supporters? A conscious effort that's something that needs to be done?
I'm looking at Russ.
Yeah, well, look, I think we're always looking to engage supporters. I don't think that ever stops. I know, like Vinny says, obviously, we run Match Day Experience Group, for example. I know there's always high emotion and tension about things like ticket prices. And sometimes you just have to just stop a second and just remind people actually what's happened during the last 12 months and the impact that the club has had on the local community, for example. And I always say this, and I'm sure everyone's heard me say this before, but football clubs have one indefinite purpose, and that's to make fans proud. That's it. That's a football club's only purpose. And as part of that, obviously the club have run Feed Our Pack. We've distributed thousands of pieces of PPE to medical centres, to hospitals. I mean, funny enough, I sold my house recently, and I sold it to a nurse from New Cross, and when she found out I worked for Wolves, she actually got quite emotional by the fact, remembering what impact Wolves had when we delivered these boxes and boxes of PPE. And I didn't see that. We've delivered pizzas to frontline staff, and I could go on about this, but that re-engagement, I don't think ever stops. And I think we've all got a responsibility for that, to make sure that we continue that relationship with fans.
Yeah, but in China, because they have no lockdown there, so we have organized twice fans gathering for some games. The last game, unfortunately, is for the Burnley game. So unfortunately, but also
they'll never come back.
Well, no, they will come back. So in Shenzhen, and there will be another fans gathering for the Man United game. So I think that there will be maybe more than 100 people there. So they enjoyed that. So we are doing something. Sometimes the fans in Wolverhampton, they have to understand that we have already a global fan base. So for example, we have several million fans in Mexico, so we have a lot of fans in Africa, we have some fans in China. Actually, I have to say if you talk about the numbers, I'm not talking about the contribution or loyalty, but if you only talk about the numbers, I think the majority fan base coming from foreign countries now.
But how do you define fan base? Because you say millions in Mexico. What sort of criteria? Is that the principal club they follow, or are Wolves just an overseas secondary club?
The followers from the social media, they follow our news, they follow our content. They are
not necessarily as the principal club they support, though.
Yeah.
I think you find that they are.
Yeah, they are. And also, but of course, if you talk about the real financial contribution here is still the core base, of course. But sometimes when we are look after all the fans, we can not only look after the fans here, we have to look after the fans around the world. And for example, we are doing something special in China, because in China the fans are different from here. I can tell you that the age group in China, Chinese fans, is quite young. And we have a chat group in WeChat, maybe more than 100 to 200 people there. They are mostly 15 years old. So they are talking about, I cannot watch the game tonight because it's very late for Wolves because tomorrow I have to go to school.
Yeah.
That's it. But here, the fan base are more like 40s, 50s, so it's different. So we have different strategy for different fans around the world. Yeah.
We'll touch on the importance of the global fan base in a bit and why it is key and why it heads straight back to the first team. But initially, we've got to stick with the fan base that we've got in the city at the moment. And the stadium is obviously a huge issue. It's not the supporters' fault that the stadium capacity is what it is. Jeff, can you sort of update us on any plans for developments? Everyone's looking at the Steve Bull stand and thinking that's an obvious starting point. Where do we sit with this?
Yeah, I think there are two options. The first option is to do some refurbs and not so much investment, but I think the highest priority is the Steve Bull stand, right? So,
Yeah.
So we are planning to do some refurbs and maybe not large investment, but to try to make the stadium better. I think that's one of the options, and I keep talking with Russ to try to make it happen, and sooner or later. The other option is that the long-term investment, a new stadium or at the same location, whatever, but it incurs maybe, I think, at least 300 or 400 million investment. So that's a big money to us now. And normally, clubs do the business. They loan money from the banks and with a lower interest rate. For example, like Spurs are doing, and I think the interest rate may be 2 or 3%. And it's a 20 years loan, and you have to pay the interest for every year. But you calculate that, you think maybe by the commercial revenue, the ticketing revenue, and you can get the money back maybe in 15 years or whatever. So in general, a new stadium is commercial-wise or financial-wise, it's not a very sound project because you pay the money first up front, then you need a very stable, smooth 15 years to get the money back. But actually, at the beginning, I thought it works in most cases, but the pandemic gave me more negative thinking because sometimes 1 year like this will break all the calculations or predictions or whatever, because 1 year without any revenue, your cost about the same will be much higher. Then it will push the financial crisis into a high degree. So now I'm more cautious about it. So the key criteria is the interest rate.
Yeah.
So I think even just 0.01 percentage gap will be important because it's 20 years, So I'm trying to look for a very low interest rate. So I did consult with the government in Wolverhampton, and also I know the bottom line, some debt, some loan from the government, but they have some guidance or discipline, and they cannot do something too low, or the people will say bad things about the government. Or we can look for the market, maybe in United States, some pension fund, they can do the same thing. So we are keep looking for that. But when the interest rate will be low enough, depending on the market, it depends on us. So we will keep trying to explore that. But at the moment, it's very important.
Is that something the supporters really have to understand? You feel that the stadium expansion is really down to the global market and the banks in particular, and no matter how much they say it needs doing, there comes a point where you just can't act until the right climate.
Yeah, when the moment is right. I mean, financially, when the moment is right, and then when we take some risk like the pandemic into this consideration, if we think it's right to do that, we'll do that. And it's not to make profit for that. If it can break even, it can work. But now, by current calculation, it's harder to break even, and also maybe if we meet some year like the year now, it will be a disaster to us. So we have to be careful. And also, if you have any money spare, I think the first priority is about the first team, the starting 11, and even the academy is ahead of the new stadium.
Okay.
Right, Scott. Yeah. So
you'd be pleased with that, Scott. Going back to the Steve Bull stand, Russ, there's a couple of fans have mentioned a few safety issues. Getting into the Steve Bull stand now can be a nightmare, up to half an hour queues, and then the steepness, particularly the second tier, causing a few issues. There have been talks, can you get rails in, can you do this? What are or can you let us know any specific plans?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As Jeff said, we spent a lot of time looking at every aspect of the stadium in terms of almost those quick wins. I mean, the reality is that even quick wins are not quick. You're talking about 2 to 14 year paybacks. Knocking down stadiums, you're talking about 20, 25 year paybacks. So in terms of the Steeple stand specifically, we've looked at a number of different renovation ideas. So rather than a complete knockdown, it's renovation to address a number of different things, but mainly it's about facility upgrades because, look, the fans are correct. The facilities are massively outdated when you go into the Steeple stand. I think it's fair to say from a hospitality perspective. I mean, Vinny can talk more about that, but from the turnstile perspective, we're aware that those queues are outside. So those renovation plans we've looked at would involve full kind of changes to concourse, certainly changes to the way that fans access turnstiles, massive upgrades to hospitality facilities. So timing's everything, as Jeff says, but it's absolutely on our radar.
A lot of people said the lockdown would have been a good chance to do stuff, but I think that ignores the fact that you can't just come up with a new stadium improvement in the space of time. With the stadium empty, it's just not practical.
Johnny, the world is about money, right?
Yeah, finance.
It's about money, so
it's important fans understand that, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about money. The lockdown is a good time maybe for the construction, but it's not good for the money. So
Interesting. What about corner sections of the ground? I mean, there's something that fans would maybe think could be done, not on the cheap, but certainly.
Again, it's not that cheap, if I'm honest. It's the sort of thing you think you could, knock up for 50 grand, but the reality is it's not. It's another zero on that plus a bit more. Again, it's another thing that Jeff and I are talking about. So the good news is we have planning for that corner, which again fans will know. So it's in our thinking, and look, it'd be great to do it when we can.
I think you've answered this before, but a couple of questions from Leon James and Craig Lefebvre have talked about, would a new location still be on the table, or is that out of the question?
No, I think Russell has done a good job, and he proposed me a good plan. So before that plan, I thought maybe a new location will be possible. But after that plan, I have seen that plan, right? So it's a very good plan. So I don't think we should move the location here.
I think most fans would agree, if not entirely. Also, you've got that city centre location, which I think is sort of invaluable when you look at other clubs. And talking about that, Lee and Joe Walker have said they want to know if there's any partnerships or developments that you have ideas for, supported by the council or the university, and the wider area of Wolverhampton that you can help with regeneration. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I sit on a couple of boards in the city, so funny enough, I was on a call with Tim Johnson earlier on today, the chief exec of the council, and I also was on a call after that with Catherine Clough, who's the external relations at the University of Wolverhampton. So we're really, really tight with both the council and the university. That development of the Molyneux Quarter clearly has an overarching interest for all parties. The university in particular are incredibly ambitious in terms of their plans. They've recently opened the 100 million Springfield site, which will be the biggest construction campus in all of Europe, and they're opening a screen school, which is a sort of a direct partnership with us in terms of some of our esports programs. So we're really tight with those guys, and look, I've no doubt that they would be supportive of everything that we're trying to do. And as Jeff says, that interest rate that is going to be important, working with the council so they can support us if that becomes a funding option.
Vinny, what can be done in terms of your side of the business with the current stadium? Because it's not necessarily geared towards realising the commercial growth you want to.
It's not. It's quite an old school stadium, and everything we do in our teams is we always start with the product. What is the product? And on the hospitality side, specifically in the Steeple area, we're not proud of what's over there at the moment, and we desperately want to change that. And put products and packages in place in hospitality that that we can be proud of and that fans can enjoy. The reality is commercially it has to work, and if there's 20-30 year paybacks on this work, then we have to seriously question whether that's worth doing. So it's a balance. Again, it comes down to it's a balancing act. There are quick wins that we can try and bring in and improve our products and improve the value that we're giving to supporters, but some of the other projects are much longer term.
Back before you arrived here, Jeff, when the Premier League first came about, Wolves sort of left behind a bit with the ground, and it was only when Sir Jack Haywood redeveloped it that they sort of caught up. Do you fear that there's any sense that that could happen again in a modern era?
Different owners have different views. Sorry, I have to say that. Of course, I understand Sir Jack has done a lot of good things to the club, but I think you cannot compare two owners because they share different backgrounds, right? So, and for Forsen or for myself, we always put the team first here because we do think when we talk about a club, the stadium is important, but in modern times, it's more important about the squad. When you talk about the top clubs, the first thing in your mind is not the stadium. The first thing is the players. In history, all the players come and go and to the club. So the focus will be always about the first team. And also the challenge in the Premier League is so tough now. You can see everything is so challenging. So we have to think about the first team squad, the academy, and ahead of everything else. But of course, it's nice to have if we have a new stadium. But we have to be patient to wait for the right timing. And timing is everything, I can tell you. Timing is everything. Just when the timing is right, I dare to do this. But above that, I'm like the captain of the ship, so I have to keep the ship stable. You know, it's very important. I don't want to make the ship go to a shipwreck, whatever, just because financially, commercially, sporting-wise, it should be stable, and that's the most important thing. And people are celebrating it's the 4th year in the Premier League. It's like something amazing, but to me it's not. I think we can stay here for forever. You know, so if you want to do that, you have to think about the players first, right? Rather than you think about new stadium. I think a lot of cases in the past years in the world, you built a new stadium, then you drop to League One Championship or whatever. So why do this? So that's my reasoning, and maybe it's different from the previous owners, but everyone has their own character, you know, so I just be myself, yeah.
And the guys earlier in their bit were talking about being creative. We do the same. So we've just renegotiated a really exciting long-term partnership with our catering partner, Leave It, and as part of that, we leverage in the negotiations that there's a commitment on them to invest in our facilities. So leveraging partner relationships and making sure that the commercial partners that we have at the club are investing in our infrastructure as well is something that we're doing more and more of now.